All right, good morning, friends. This is Dennis Miracle. Today I'm going to be making what I'm calling the Venice purse. And you can see the design is before you. And so let me show you what you're going to need in the way of supplies to make this. So let's walk over to the cutting table. You need two pieces of batting, one cut 6 by 11, one cut 7 by 11. You need two pieces of lining fabric, both cut 7 by 11. You need two pieces for the exterior front of the bag, two coordinating pieces of fabric, both cut 7 by 11. You need a piece of 7 by 11 fabric for the back of the bag, which I'm using this one of the same fabrics that I'm using on the front. You might also want to put one or two of these little connectors if you want to put straps on, and they can be put in any number of locations depending on what kind of strap you want. And you need a zipper, a number 3 nylon zipper. 12 to 14 inches is what I would recommend. And I think that's it. And I have already run the first step in the bag and and we will now put the zipper on. So let me grab that zipper. Alrighty, you can see the placement lines, step number 1, and you can see the 4 lines at the top. A number 3 zipper should fit between those, line number 1 and line number 4. So I'm going to place that zipper there, and as you see, it fits just perfectly. And I'm going to tape it down on this end, over here, and in the middle, and I'll do that and be right back. All right, you can see I'm using gold thread at this point. You can see that the zipper has been sewn down, and we need to take our first piece of lining fabric, turn the hoop over, and place the lining fabric face down to this edge. Line the edge of the fabric up to the this fourth line at the bottom, face down, and make sure that it's spaced evenly on the sides. And let me see, yes, it's just fine there. So I'm going to tape that down and I'll be right back. All right, I have taped the lining down, so I'm going to pick up my hoop and just let the lining fabric fall to the front of the hoop. And let me turn this around. So at this point, we're going to take the we're going to take the lining fabric and fold it over several times, and I usually have that cut off that's extra, which for some reason I don't today. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and tape it down right here where my finger is pointing, because we're not going to need the lining fabric. We want it to stay out of the way for a number of the next steps. So let me tape that down. Okay, that's taped down. We're going to take our first piece of fabric that we want to put on the front of our bag. This is going to be the fabric that will be at the top of the bag, where the beautiful flowery floral quilting will be. So this is a directional fabric because it has Christmassy sayings on it. And so I'm going to take and just, you can see it's in the right orientation now. Just flip it up like this and it will remain in the correct orientation, and put it on this edge to edge with this the bottom of the zipper, now that you can see the zipper itself. And make sure that it's lined up on the sides also. That looks pretty good. And then tape it down. And I think I can do that with one hand. Okay. And then over here, well, all right, come on. Come on, you. Okay. Alrighty, now I'm going to put this in the machine and run step number 3, which will simply sew this down along where my finger's pointing. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, you can see that the stitching has been completed there on the front. Let me turn it over to make sure everything went okay there. Yes, it's close, but that's enough. That's fine, about 1/4 of an inch. So sometimes it comes loose and causes a problem, but it's fine now. Now take the smaller piece of batting, I think, what is it, 6 by 11, and take it and place it just right under the stitch line. There you can see the stitches, and then pull the piece of fabric down over it. And I'm going to I like to have a nice crease at the top, so I'm going to take my iron and run over it. So all right, I think that'll do it. And now I'm going to put it back in the machine, and it's going to run the placement stitches for the second piece of fabric. So let me do that. All right, you can see the stitching has been done. I'm going to change thread now from the gold to the red because ultimately I want the satin stitching to be done in red. Yeah, I think it'll show up better and be prettier. So let me change thread, and then I'm going to put my piece of, let me grab it. You can walk with me. Take my piece of fabric. That's going to be the second piece of fabric, which is this fabric, and it really doesn't have any orientation. It doesn't have a particular orientation. It doesn't look like. So just place it on top here of just cover what's already there. And then I'm going to stick this back after I change thread. I'm going to stick it back in the machine and run the next step, which is step 5, which will sew this piece of fabric down. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right. You can see I finished the step that I was working on, and you can barely see that it sewed this fabric down as I'm pointing with my finger. Next, I'm going to take my applique scissors and cut, starting right from the side, just cut right in, and then follow the line all the way, cutting on the upper part. We want to remove this upper part so we can see our white fabric or tan fabric, off-white with Christmas sayings on it. So we want to remove this piece of fabric right here because we're going to do some pretty quilting on it. So let me take it to the kitchen table where it's nice and bright, and I can cut this out, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is what it should now look like. And the next step will be the step of the satin stitching, and it's going to satin stitch along through here, but also, even though we're not holding anything fabric down, it's going to satin stitch this area also to make it look like it's well, just to set it off nicely, because we're going to have beautiful stitching inside here. So let me run that and I'll be back in a moment. Alrighty, I'm back, and the satin stitching is finished, and I think it came out perfectly. Actually, I won't say surprised, but it looks great. I'm very happy with it. So let's put this. Now we're going to start the pretty quilting here on the front. So the first thing that's going to be quilted is this area here, and then this area will be quilted in a separate step, and this area will be quilted in a separate step. I wanted to put it in 3 steps to give you the choice of what you wanted to run, because maybe you don't like quilting or you don't want all of it quilted. So I'm going to quilt all of it just to see how it looks. So let me do that, and I'll run these steps, and I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, all of the quilting has been done now, and you can see, I think this is so pretty right here, but maybe no one else will, I don't know, but I think it's beautiful. And I messed up because I wanted to put red thread on this part and gold thread down here, but I was not alert when when it went from one step to the next, so that's just the price you pay. Anyhow, the next thing I want to do is finally we want to let loose this the piece of lining fabric and let it fall to the back. And let's take off these pieces of tape right here, and maybe we can use them to tape this down. Let me see if I can do. Okay, I can do it one-handed. Okay. I'm about to drop the darn phone. Okay, now let me put this right here. Oh, you're not seeing that. And let me put this right here, and let me stick it back in the machine, and it will sew around here and sew this lining down. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. All right, let's turn this over. I've just taken it out of the machine and make sure that everything went well, and yes, it did. This is all sewn down. Now let's take and we're going to remove this stabilizer, which I use paper towels. I know that's not what most of you will use, and I'm not recommending it, but that's what I use. It works for me, that's all I'm going to say. And let's remove this from the back of the bag here. And you can see I'm doing it just with my fingernail of my thumb. Okay. Well, that must be it. Okay, yes, that is. Okay. So then let's turn it back over to the front and remove this piece of tape here that was initially holding down the zipper. And let me get rid of that tape. Oh, get off me. Let's open this. Open it about 3/4 of the way. All right, that's far enough. And now I'm going to take my little, well, I've got to go get it first. Okay, I'm going to take my little connector here and put it right here on the side and tape it down. Okay, and make sure that you are not in the stitch line with, if you staple yours, I've got the staple there, but you can see the stitch line right here. I'm out of the stitch line, so that's not going to be a problem. And then also make sure that you tape down the metal piece, because it has a way of wiggling and getting under the presser foot and causing a disaster. So make sure you fix that, tape that down, and that should be fine. Okay, now we're going to take the what's going to be our back piece of fabric and place it over this design and also the batting. So again, we go to the cutting table. I'm not cutting any of this out. This is, as my friend says, real life sewing, and this is what we all do. I'm not a professional videographer, and this isn't a professional movie. It's the best I can do. So put your whatever's going to be your back fabric, put it face down, and make sure. Now this is not a fabric that is that needs to be oriented a certain way, so it doesn't matter how I put it. So I'm just putting it face down, making sure that you are over the zipper at least 1/4 of an inch, and then place your piece of batting over that and smooth it down and put it in your machine and run the next step, which is the second to the last step. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Alrighty, you can see that it has basically closed the bag up, this step, second to the last step, and the bag is closed up. We did the important thing of making sure that the zipper was inside the stitch line, which I can feel it right here. So we're going to turn it, for the last step, we're going to turn over to the back of the hoop and place our last piece of lining. So you will place the lining face down, covering, okay, covering what's already there, making sure again that you are above the, at least a 1/4 inch above the zipper on the, you can see the zipper here, making sure you're 1/4 inch above it at least. Make sure you're okay down here. You can see the stitch line, it's way up there, so we're fine there. This is going to sew the bag closed, except it's going to leave a gap between about where my finger is over to this side where my finger is. So I'm going to tape this down on all 4 corners of this piece of fabric and stick it in the machine and run the last step. And when it's done, I'll be back. All right, I have run the last step, and let me turn it over and make sure it did what I said it was going to do. Yes, it left a nice gap so I can get my hand in here and turn it, the bag, when I need to. So what we're going to do now is remove the bag from the hoop. Okay, left off the top part of the hoop. Is there any, okay. Oh, I see a piece of tape over on the bed of my machine. Let me get that. And then remove the other part of the hoop and make sure there's no tape on it. No, there isn't. Okay, now I cut from the lining side, and I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to start here, and I'm going to cut in at an angle up to the stitching right here, and then I'm going to follow the stitching about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch all the way around on the outside of the stitching, like I'm showing with the scissors, and end up right here. And I'm going to cut at an angle like this, and I'm going to do that and leave this alone down here. Don't touch it at the moment. We will be touching it in a moment, in a few moments, but not now. So do the cutting. My camera's going bizarre. Do the cutting, and I'll be right back. All right, you can see that I have trimmed all the way around, and now on this part here, well, let me leave it that way. You've got 2 pieces of lining. You've got this first piece and this second piece of lining, which is always much longer. You need to take all the rest of this, which would be the what is the word I'm looking for? Stuff you put down in the frame first. Anyhow, that piece and the batting and the fabric, you're going to want to take your scissors and trim just above this. Don't cut into this lining piece, these lining pieces, but cut just above it and remove all of this because it's junk. You don't need it. It's you're going to throw it away. So let's do that, and I'll be right back. All right, I cut all that away, so you should only have left these 2 pieces of lining fabric. So now you want to reach in, and I'll have to do this off camera, and turn your bag through this giant gap here. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back in a moment. Alrighty, now I have turned the bag out through that large gap, and you see we have, you should see lining on both sides of the bag. If you see lining on both sides and it's the correct side of the lining, you should be good. Now I'm going to take this first smaller piece of lining that doesn't go as high as this one here, and turn it in just like this. Just fold it in, and then take your iron and go over this and give it a good crease. Let me see, my iron is on and hot for once. And then take your second piece of lining, and you see we cut it at angles, fold it in, and that's really long. I could have cut it off. Make sure these angled pieces go over towards the side of the bag, and then take your iron. I'm going to take my iron when I set the phone down or the camera down, and I'm going to run the iron over this and make a nice crease about right here, so everything is It's just they're about the same distance apart. They're about the close together, and I'm going to then take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew from right where my finger is over to this right here where the gap is, and close this gap so our purse will be closed. So let's do that, and I'll meet you back in just a few moments. All right, I have sewn, as you can see, I have sewn the bag closed, and I'm going to take my little snippers. Let me see, I'll grab this pair, and I'm going to cut off this few pieces of stray thread. There's, okay, alrighty, and I know there's more, but I'm not going to take the time right now to cut them. So let's, well, again, I'll have to put the phone down, and it's now time to open it up through the zipper, and let's do that and see what we've got. Remember, you have a piece of tape covering that piece of metal if you chose to put that in there. So I'm going to reach in and grab it first. Then I'm going to turn the bag out, and I'll be right back. All right, I have turned the bag out, and I think it's going to be beautiful. It looks beautiful. Just take with your fingers and turn the zipper the way it should be. It just needs a little bit of help getting turned the correct way, and then let me close my bag. Well, okay, all right, okay. And I'm going to run my iron over it and and I usually don't do this without a pressing cloth, but I've thrown caution to the wind today, so, and I do the back piece also. I'm living dangerously today. Alrighty, let's look at it. All right, I think it's very pretty, and this is a Venice bag, and I hope that you have enjoyed being with me today. I'm just I'm just doing the best I can, frankly, and I'm not, I make mistakes, but I just let them be, because that's the way of nature and the way of sewing. So hopefully I've not made too many mistakes today. I think this looks good. I think it's beautiful, but that's my opinion as the creator of it. So anyhow, I want to thank you for being with me today. I hope you've enjoyed our little session together, and I always take the time to thank the people who continue to support me and encourage me, because it means more than you will ever know. And again, thank you so much, and you have a great week. And I've got plenty more bags under construction, and I just need to sit here and make these videos and get them out to you folks. And thank you so much, and have a good week. Bye-bye.